Alright, hello. It's been a little while since I made a video, hope you're alright. I've been getting a few questions recently. People obviously are finding the video I did about setting up tremolo quite useful. I was resetting the level of the bridge, my floating bridge, as you can see on the guitar. A couple of things I've been asked recently is I'm still getting buzz from the strings on certain frets, sometimes the lower frets, sometimes the upper frets. If you've already tried adjusting the bridge here so that it's sat flat, so you can get that there, as we covered in the other video, and also you can change the height of the bridge by using the bolt pegs here, moving them up and down so the trem actually moves up and down. If you're finding that you've got a good action but you're still finding that the guitar is buzzing in certain frets, it could be to do with the truss rod. Now, this is a bit of a dodgy area because it's not something you really want to be doing. You don't want to be messing around with it if you first of all don't understand what you're doing, and secondly if you don't research it first. I won't discourage you from doing it. Everyone's got to start somewhere, and if you want to do it yourself, it's your guitar, so get on with it. But the only thing I'd suggest is you either watch this video first and research it so that you know what you're doing and you know why you're doing it. Now I'll give you a little insight here. What I do, if I think the frets on this guitar, I had to do the truss rod adjustment on this guitar, so I won't be doing it today, but I'll explain what I did and then hopefully you can take something out of that. Basically, I'd set this guitar up, so I'll move back a little bit. So the bridge was flat, as you can see, nice and flat, and I'd also lowered the bridge as far as it could physically go with these pegs, but the action was still a bit high. So basically I had to look at adjusting the truss rod. Now the way that me personally I used to be able to tell if I need to do that, it's going to sound a bit strange this, so try and bear with me. Hold the guitar, if you've got a right-handed guitar, hold it so that the strings are facing to the right and look down the guitar. Now where you want to be aiming for is top part of the fingerboard here, about 24th fret. I'll try and move it round. Now what I do is I get my head and I look directly down from this 24th fret down to the bottom of the headstock, just so it looks in a straight line straight down there. And from this guitar I can tell by looking down that there's a slight amount of bow in the neck. Now ideally what you want to be looking for when you look straight down the neck is a straight neck until about 3rd fret, 2nd fret, and then there's meant to be a little bit of a bow at the end, just a tiny bit, to eliminate a fret buzz on the lower frets when you have a low action. So basically you're meant to have just enough give in the neck so that when you string the guitar up and you tune it, there's a tiny little bow at the end, just a minuscule little curve, and it will stop the frets buzzing on these lower frets. So what I found when I strung this one up, I bought this one the other day and set it up, was if I looked down the guitar I could tell that I was still getting a bit of a bad action, and specifically on the top frets the action was quite high, and I was also getting no buzz at all from the bottom. But if you find you are getting buzz, we'll deal with that in a second. So I found that the action was still too high, so when I looked down the guitar I noticed that there was quite a big bow in the neck. So I thought, well, the truss rod's probably a bit loose. So in my case I had to tighten the truss rod a bit to take the bow out of the neck, if that makes sense. Obviously you put a bit more pressure on the metal bar running through this neck, the neck's going to stay straighter under more tension from the strings. In people's cases where they're getting fret buzz from the 1st and 2nd and potentially 3rd fret around this area, have a look down your neck, and if you find there's no bow in it, because your neck can be absolutely dead straight if the truss rod's too tight, then you need to loosen the truss rod a bit to give it a little bit of slack in the neck when you tune the strings up. So how do you do this? Well, if you want to have a look at some research stuff, it's good. I know it sounds like a boring word, but have a look on a place called Gem site. There's a guide on there of how to adjust the truss rod. It's really simple. All you do is up here on the headstock there's a plate at the top of the neck. Let's get that in view. This little plate here with 3 screws. Now I think most guitars these days will have a truss rod in the neck. The best thing to do is obviously unscrew the plate, and underneath there will be a nut, basically a sort of hexagonal nut. And when you bought the guitar, if you bought it new, you should have a tool. I think mine's around. There we go. It looks like this. like that, turn it sideways on. It's a little bolt turner. So that goes into the hole that's created in the top when you take the plate off. And if you're looking at it straight on, like that, turn to the right, we'll tighten up the truss rod. Turn to the left, we'll loosen the truss rod. Righty tighty, lefty loosey. Standard sort of industrial practice. The big question is, how many turns do you turn it to get your desired result? So this is where you've got to be very careful, because if you over tighten a truss rod, it's not going to do you any favours. If you loosen a truss rod too much and you tune the guitar back up, you could warp the wood, you could potentially split the wood if you do it too loose. It depends on the gauge of strings you're using and the tuning you're using. I mean, if you use hideously thick strings for standard E, say sort of set of 12s or something like that, you can be putting a lot of pressure on the neck. So what I suggest you do is don't completely detune the guitar, but detune it a bit so that you slacken off the strings. So say you were tuned to E, take some pressure off the strings, take it down to like C sharp or something like that, a few turns on the top of the strings, take some pressure off of it. If you need to tighten it up at that point. If you need to loosen it off. Once you've done that, leave it for about 10-15 minutes before you even touch it. Let it adjust, let it take a breather, and then when you think you've turned it, I mean, say you want to loosen it, do a quarter of a turn first, not too much. If you want to tighten it, quarter of a turn. Tune the guitar back up after about a quarter of an hour, leave it another 10 odd minutes again, and then do the thing I said where you look down the neck to have a look how much bow you've got in the neck when it's in tune. Now it's really important that you do this in little steps, because if you get this wrong you can damage your guitar. Like I said, it can have some pretty bad results. So if you've adjusted your bridge, so you've set it so it's flat, and you've adjusted the height of the bridge, and you find that you either can't get a good action or you're getting a nice action but a lot of string buzz. If you're getting a good action but string buzz, try loosening the truss rod a little bit. If you find you haven't got enough bow in the neck, be very careful. If you find that you've got a bad action where you've lowered the tremolo and set up the bridge, you might need to take some bow out of the neck if it looks like you've got too much. Now, I don't think I need to make disclaimers and things like that, but just all I'll say is be very careful with this, because it's one of the potential harmful things that you can do to your guitar. I mean, moving a bridge up and down or setting a bridge wrong, you're not likely to break anything. If you get this wrong, you could cause some damage. I know I've said that about 3 times now, but there is a point to that. So yeah, if you're going to go off and do this, have a look on Gemsite, have a look at their little diagram on how you reset the truss rod and loosen it and tighten it, and the rest is completely up to you. So good luck.